dive into today's episode, I just want to remind you to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support means the world to us. It helps us grow, reach more amazing learners like you, and keep bringing you fresh and fun content every week. So don't forget, like, subscribe, and let's keep this journey going strong. Hello, wonderful language learners, and a very warm welcome back to another episode of Idiom Insights. I'm Emma, your enthusiastic guide, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be back here with you, ready to explore the rich and often surprising world of English idioms. It's always a joy to share these discoveries with you.
And I'm Jack, your co-host and resident idiom aficionado, here to help unravel the meanings and perhaps sprinkle in a bit of wordplay along our linguistic journey. It's fantastic to be back in the Idiom Insights studio, Emma, and a big hello to all our dedicated listeners tuning in.
It's always a highlight, Jack. Today, we've selected 4 incredibly useful idioms that you'll encounter frequently in everyday English. Understanding these will not only sharpen your comprehension skills, but also equip you with more nuanced and natural ways to express yourself. These phrases cover everything from avoiding responsibility to focusing intently, dealing with future problems, and abandoning someone.
A very practical and interesting selection indeed, Emma. These are idioms that really add color and precision to conversation. Here are the 4 idioms we'll be delving into in this episode of Idiom Insights. First, an idiom about avoiding responsibility. Pass the buck. Second, a phrase for focusing intently on something. Zero in on. Third, a common saying about dealing with future problems only when they arise. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. And finally, an expression for abandoning someone in a difficult situation. Leave someone high and dry.
Those are all excellent and very common idioms, Jack. Each one paints a vivid picture and has a distinct usage that I think our listeners will find really helpful to understand.
I agree. They're all crackers. And before we jump into the first one, just a quick, friendly reminder from us here at Idiom Insights. If you're finding these episodes valuable and you enjoy learning with us, please consider hitting that subscribe or follow button on your podcast app.
Yes, subscribing is the best way to ensure you don't miss any of our future idiom explorations. And if you're feeling extra supportive, a like or a positive rating on your podcast platform truly helps other English learners discover Idiom Insights. We are so grateful for your engagement.
It really makes a difference. Thank you all. Right then, Emma, are you ready to tackle our first idiom of the day?
Let's do it. Our first idiom for this episode of Idiom Insights is pass the buck.
Pass the buck. This one sounds a bit like it might involve money, or maybe a game. What does it actually mean to pass the buck, Emma?
That's an interesting thought, Jack. The buck in this idiom originally referred to a marker, like a knife with a buckhorn handle that was used in poker games. The person who had the buck was the one whose turn it was to deal. If they didn't want to deal, they could pass the buck to the next player. So, the idiom pass the buck means to avoid responsibility for something by making someone else responsible for it. It means to shift blame or a difficult task onto another person.
So it's about evading your own responsibility and making someone else deal with the problem or take the blame. Like if a mistake happens at work and the person who made the mistake tries to blame their colleague or say it was someone else's fault, they are passing the buck.
Exactly. Or if a manager is given a difficult decision to make, but instead of making the decision themselves, they delegate it to a junior employee who isn't really equipped to handle it, the manager is passing the buck. They are avoiding the responsibility of making that tough call. It generally has a negative connotation, implying that someone is shirking their duty or being unfair.
It sounds like it's often about avoiding unpleasant tasks or the consequences of one's own actions. Nobody likes to take the blame, but passing the buck seems like a cowardly or irresponsible thing to do.
It is generally seen that way. The phrase became particularly famous when U.S. President Harry S. Truman had a sign on his desk that said, "The buck stops here," meaning he accepted ultimate responsibility and wouldn't pass it on to others. So, the idiom implies a failure to take ownership.
That's a great bit of history. So, if my kids make a mess in the living room and then try to blame each other, they are both trying to pass the buck to avoid cleaning it up.
Precisely. It's about not wanting to face the consequences or do the hard work.
Okay, so pass the buck means to avoid responsibility by making someone else responsible, or by blaming someone else. Ready to hear Mia and Mark use this idiom, perhaps in a work situation?
Let's listen in. I wonder who will be trying to avoid responsibility.
Mark, I've just had a very unhappy client on the phone complaining about the errors in the final project report we sent them yesterday. They're demanding it be fixed immediately.
Oh no, that's not good. Weren't you the one who was supposed to do the final proofread and check all the figures before it went out, Mia?
Well, yes, I was meant to, but I was incredibly busy with that other urgent deadline, remember? So I asked Sarah from the other team if she could quickly look over it for me. I assumed she'd catch any major errors.
So, you asked Sarah to do your final check? Mia, that report was ultimately your responsibility. It sounds a bit like you're trying to pass the buck to Sarah now that there's a problem. The client is complaining about our team's work.
I know, you're right. It was my task. I shouldn't have delegated the final check like that, especially when Sarah isn't familiar with the project. I need to take responsibility and fix it myself, not try to blame her. It's my mistake.
That was a clear example. Mia initially tried to imply that Sarah was at fault for not catching the errors, but Mark correctly pointed out that Mia was trying to pass the buck for a task that was her own responsibility.
Exactly. And Mia then acknowledged her attempt to avoid responsibility and accepted that she needed to own the mistake. It really highlighted the negative connotation of trying to shift blame.
It's a very common idiom for calling out that kind of behavior.
It is. So, next time you see someone trying to avoid responsibility for their actions or tasks by blaming someone else, you can say they are trying to pass the buck.
And we'd love to hear about a time you've seen someone try to pass the buck. Or perhaps a time you proudly declared, "The buck stops here." Share your experiences in the comments section below this episode.
Great idea, Jack. Let's move on now to our second interesting idiom in this episode of Idiom Insights. This one is about focusing your attention.
Our second idiom today is zero in on.
Zero in on. This sounds like it might come from aiming a weapon or a camera, perhaps. Like getting something perfectly in your sights.
You're absolutely right, Emma. The idiom zero in on means to focus all your attention on one particular person, thing, or subject, often after a period of searching or considering various options. It means to aim directly at or converge upon something. The zero part relates to adjusting sights on a weapon or instrument until they are perfectly aligned with the target, zeroing the sights.
So it's about identifying a specific target or focus point and then directing all your efforts or attention towards it, often with precision. For example, if detectives are investigating a crime and they have many suspects, but then they find a crucial piece of evidence that points to one particular person, they will zero in on that suspect and focus their investigation on them.
Precisely. Or if you're shopping for a new phone and there are hundreds of models, but you decide you need one with a really great camera, you might zero in on the few models that are known for their camera quality and ignore all the others. You're narrowing your focus to a specific target.
It implies a deliberate and focused effort. It's not just casually noticing something, it's actively directing your attention and efforts towards a specific point. You might zero in on the main cause of a problem, or zero in on the most important task that needs to be done.
It can also be used when someone is being targeted for criticism or questioning. If a politician is giving a speech and journalists keep asking questions about one particular controversial issue, they are zeroing in on that sensitive topic.
That makes sense. It's about fixing your attention or efforts very precisely on one thing, to the exclusion of others, often because it's seen as most important or relevant.
So, zero in on means to focus all your attention on one particular person, thing, or subject, or to aim directly at something. Ready to hear Mia and Mark use this idiom?
Let's listen in. I wonder what they might be focusing their attention on.
This marketing report is huge, Mia. There are so many different statistics and data points here. I'm finding it hard to see what the main takeaway message is supposed to be for our presentation.
I know what you mean, Mark. It's a lot to digest. But I think if we look closely, there's one key trend that seems to be driving all the other results. See this section here on customer engagement through social media?
Oh yes, I see that. The numbers there are significantly different from last quarter. Is that what you think we should focus on?
Exactly. I think we need to zero in on that specific trend, the dramatic increase in social media engagement, and build our whole presentation around explaining why it happened and what it means for our future strategy. Instead of trying to cover everything, let's zero in on the most impactful finding.
That's a great idea, Mia. By zeroing in on that key point, we can make our presentation much clearer and more persuasive. It gives us a strong central theme.
That was a perfect use of the idiom. Mia suggested that instead of trying to cover all the data, they should zero in on the most significant trend, the social media engagement, and focus their entire presentation on that one key point.
Exactly. It showed a deliberate narrowing of focus to the most important element after considering a wider range of information. It highlighted the precision and purposefulness of the action.
It's a very effective idiom for describing that act of intense, targeted focus.
It is. So, next time you need to describe the action of focusing intently on a specific point, problem, or person, remember the idiom zero in on.
And we'd love to hear about something you've had to zero in on recently. Was it a problem to solve, a goal to achieve, or something else? Share your examples in the comments below the episode.
Wonderful idea, Jack! Let's move on now to our third common saying in this episode of Idiom Insights. This one is about dealing with problems as they arise.
Our third idiom for today is, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. This is a very well-known saying, isn't it? It sounds like it's about not worrying about future problems too soon.
You're absolutely right, Emma. The idiom, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, or sometimes when we get to it, means that we should not worry about a potential future problem or difficulty until it actually happens. It's a way of saying, let's deal with that issue if and when it becomes a real problem, but not before.
So, it's advice against premature worry or overthinking hypothetical future challenges. Instead of trying to solve every possible problem that might occur, you wait and see if it does occur, and then you deal with it at that time. For example, if someone is planning a big outdoor event and starts worrying, what if it rains on that day? Someone else might say, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, meaning let's not stress about the possibility of rain now. If it looks like rain closer to the date, we'll figure out a backup plan then.
Precisely. Or if you're starting a new project and someone says, but what if we don't get enough funding for phase 2? A practical response might be, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Let's focus on making phase 1 successful first. It's about prioritizing current tasks and not letting potential future obstacles paralyze you now.
It's a very practical and often reassuring phrase. It encourages people to focus on the present and not waste energy worrying about every conceivable future problem. It implies a confidence that you'll be able to handle the problem if and when it actually materializes.
It doesn't mean ignoring potential problems entirely, but rather choosing not to expend energy or make detailed plans for them until they are more certain or imminent. It's about timing your problem solving.
That's a good distinction. It's not about being unprepared, but about not being prematurely stressed.
So, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it means we will deal with a potential future problem if and when it actually arises, but not worry about it or try to solve it beforehand. Ready to hear Mia and Mark use this idiom?
Let's listen in. I imagine one of them might be worrying about a future possibility.
Mark, I'm getting a bit worried about this new software rollout next month. I heard some rumors that it might not be compatible with our older operating systems. And if that's true, it could cause huge problems for half the team.
I've heard those rumors too, Mia, and it's definitely something to keep an eye on. But right now, the IT department is still testing everything, and they haven't confirmed any compatibility issues yet.
But what if it is a problem? We should start making contingency plans now. What will we do if half the team can't use the new software? It could disrupt everything.
I understand your concern, Mia, and it's good to be aware of potential issues. But honestly, trying to plan for every single what-if scenario right now will just drive us crazy. Let's wait for the official test results from IT. If there is a confirmed compatibility problem, then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. We'll figure out a solution at that point. But there's no sense in panicking or making detailed backup plans based on rumors.
You're probably right. Worrying about it now isn't helping if we don't even know for sure it's a problem. Okay, let's wait and see. We'll deal with it if it happens.
That dialogue perfectly illustrates the idiom. Mia was worrying prematurely about a potential future problem, and Mark used "we'll cross that bridge when we come to it" to advise her to wait and deal with the issue only if it actually materialized, rather than stressing about it based on rumors.
Exactly. It was a call for patience and a more measured approach to potential future challenges, focusing on addressing them when they become real rather than hypothetical.
It's a very common and reassuring phrase for managing anxiety about the future.
It is. So, next time you or someone else is worrying about a potential future problem, remember the practical advice. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
And we'd love to hear about a time you used this idiom or a situation where you found this advice helpful. Share your thoughts in the comments below the episode.
Wonderful idea, Jack. Now, we've arrived at our fourth and final idiom for this episode of Idiom Insights. This one describes a rather unfortunate situation for someone.
Our final idiom for today is leave someone high and dry.
Leave someone high and dry. This sounds like a very uncomfortable situation to be in. What does it mean when you leave someone high and dry, Jack?
It definitely describes an unpleasant predicament, Emma. To leave someone high and dry means to abandon them in a difficult or helpless situation, often without any help, resources, or support, especially when they were relying on you. The image comes from a ship being stranded on land, high, when the tide goes out, dry, leaving it unable to move and in a vulnerable position.
That's a very vivid image. So it's about deserting someone when they are in trouble or need, leaving them stuck and without assistance. For example, if you promise to help a friend move house, but then you don't show up on moving day and don't answer their calls, you have left them high and dry with all their boxes and no help.
Precisely. Or if a company suddenly closes down without paying its employees their final wages, it has left its employees high and dry, in a difficult financial situation without the money they were owed and expecting. It implies a sense of betrayal or irresponsibility on the part of the person or entity doing the abandoning.
It seems to suggest that the person left high and dry was depending on the other person, and that dependence was betrayed. They are left in a vulnerable state, often unexpectedly.
Yes, the element of expectation or reliance is often there. If a business partner suddenly pulls out of a joint venture taking all their investment with them, they might leave the other partner high and dry, struggling to continue the project alone without resources.
It's a strong idiom for describing a situation where someone is abandoned and left in a very difficult, unsupported position.
So, leave someone high and dry means to abandon someone in a difficult or helpless situation without help or resources, especially when they were relying on you. Ready to hear Mia and Mark use this idiom?
Let's listen in. I wonder who has been abandoned in their story.
Mark, I feel so bad for Sarah from accounting. Did you hear what happened with her holiday plans?
No, I didn't. What's wrong? I thought she was really looking forward to her big trip to Spain next week with her friends.
She was. They had everything booked. Flights, a beautiful villa, tours, everything. But apparently just yesterday, 2 of her friends called her and said they couldn't go anymore because they decided to go on a different trip with another group instead. They just canceled on her at the very last minute.
Oh, that's awful. So they just abandoned her right before the trip, after everything was planned and paid for?
Exactly. They've completely left her high and dry. She's now stuck with non-refundable bookings for a villa that's too big and expensive for just her, and she doesn't want to go all alone. She's so upset and doesn't know what to do. Her friends really let her down.
Wow, that's a terrible thing for friends to do. To leave her high and dry like that with all those commitments and dashed hopes, that's incredibly inconsiderate.
That dialogue perfectly illustrates the idiom. Sarah's friends abandoned her at the last minute, leaving her in a very difficult and disappointing situation with her holiday plans. Without support, they left her high and dry.
Yes, it highlighted the vulnerability and helplessness Sarah felt after being deserted by her friends, who she was relying on for the trip. The sense of betrayal was clear.
It's a very effective idiom for describing such a situation of abandonment and difficulty.
It is. So, next time you hear about someone being abandoned in a tough spot without help, especially by someone they trusted, you can say they were left high and dry.
And we'd love to hear if you've ever encountered a situation where someone was left high and dry, or perhaps you can think of an example from a movie or book. Share your thoughts in the comments below this episode.
We always appreciate your contributions. Well, Emma, we've explored 4 more really insightful idioms in this episode of Idiom Insights.
We certainly have, Jack. Just to recap for everyone tuning into Idiom Insights today, we learned
Pass the buck, meaning to avoid responsibility by making someone else responsible or blaming them.
zero in on, meaning to focus all your attention on one particular person, thing, or subject.
We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, meaning to deal with a potential future problem only if and when it actually arises.
And leave someone high and dry, meaning to abandon someone in a difficult or helpless situation without support.
4 more fantastic tools for your English communication arsenal. Remember, the key to mastering these idioms is to listen for them actively and try to incorporate them into your own speaking and writing.
Absolutely. don't be afraid to experiment. The more you use them, the more natural they will feel.
And if you enjoyed learning with us today, and we truly hope you did, please consider giving this episode of Idiom Insights a like and leaving us a positive review on your podcast platform. Your support is invaluable to us.
And make sure you hit that subscribe or follow button for Idiom Insights so you don't miss any of our future episodes, where we'll continue to unravel the mysteries of English idioms.
Thank you all so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure exploring these phrases with you.
Keep learning, keep listening, and we'll talk to you again next time on Idiom Insights.
Goodbye, everyone.
See ya!